What's up, guys? It's Toad back with you again. Thanks for everybody who hung out last night for the NFL Week 17 show. If you missed that, there's still time. You can go check it out. But I got to talk about some of the sports today. I'll probably start with the bowls, even though I know you guys like hearing the bowl analysis. I don't have any plays on the 8 bowl games today. I'm being very selective in the bowls. 3-0 in the bowl/college football playoffs, though, which I'll take. Yesterday I was 2-0, by the way, with a blowout, easy win on the Boston Celtics. And then USC, that was a weird bowl game, man. I wasn't really paying attention to it. I know it was 7-7 going into halftime after USC missed a 41-yard field goal that could have given them the lead going into the half. They had thrown an interception in Texas A&M territory shortly before that, too. So 7-7 going into the half, and then basically all hell broke loose in the second half, and Texas A&M actually took a 24-7 lead, and then USC made a huge run later in the game, and I think completely turned it around. And I think they might have scored 28 unanswered points or something, and got up to 30 to a 35-24 lead, something like that. I don't know. And they wound up winning outright, I think 35-21. So my bowl analysis was pretty good yesterday. My NBA analysis was good. My hockey analysis was not. So hopefully the hockey analysis is better, because I do have one hockey play. I have 2 NBA plays today. I got 1 NFL play today, which I already gave out on the show last night. 2 college basketball plays, and I think that's it for today. So I have 6 plays today. None of them are in the bowls. If you missed the NFL show, go watch it. One play is, I know I'm joining the public on this one, but LA Chargers -5.5. I don't love it at all, because the Chargers, even though I'm putting money on it, the Chargers are public and they are a road favorite. But the Patriots, they're in a Buffalo sandwich, man, and coming off that huge performance against Buffalo, and the Chargers are at least in a motivated spot here with extra time off. So as I mentioned, it is a little bit cool up here, but at game time, this is going to be in the afternoon. So at game time, it's going to be 40 degrees and it should be pretty clear. So I don't think that's going to be that much of an issue for the Chargers there. The Wasabi Fenway Bowl, by the way, which I'm going to talk about in a second, the weather is going to be a bit worse. It's raining right now, and it's cooler out right now. It's in the 30s out, obviously. The Wasabi Fenway Bowl at 11 a.m., you don't have enough time for the day to warm up a little bit. At least in the middle of the afternoon, it'll start being warmer in that Chargers-Patriots game there. Scott, what's up, man? The Hot Sauce Chronicles, yeah. Obviously, hot sauces are my jam. I have a lot of them. And you guys want me to do hot sauce reviews, but I don't know if I have time, man, with all this other stuff I'm doing. And my other play in the NFL, which is going to be tomorrow. I'll mention it again tomorrow, but I do like this one a lot. Atlanta Falcons +4. So those are the 2 plays. Let's get into college football here, man. Like I said, I'm not playing any of these bowl games, but we can take a look. The first game up is the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. I don't even know what Wasabi as a company is, man. I mean, I don't think this bowl is named for the sushi condiment, even though it's not bad. It's like horseradish. It really hits you in the nose, man. It's a nice nose punch. But I don't know what Wasabi, the company, is. This is a newer bowl. I think this is only like the 4th iteration of this bowl or something. This is UConn and North Carolina. This is an interesting one, man, with North Carolina not being favored by that much. They're down from 5 to 2.5. They do have 54% of tickets, 76% of cash on them. So North Carolina, I don't know when the line was 5, to be honest. I saw it pretty much at 3 for a long time. It looks like it's almost still pretty much sitting at 3. I think it was actually 2.5 for a while. Now it's kind of up a little bit from that, back to 3, 2.5. I mean, the public's going to come in on North Carolina to some extent because they are the ACC team. They have the known name. The one thing that you could say about North Carolina is that they do have a 6-6 record. So I always talk about how that's a little bit of an extra motivator in bowls, because you don't want to have a losing season. But North Carolina, I don't want to put my money on North Carolina. I mean, I don't like how they ended their season with 2 losses to end the season. That's not great. And one of those was a game where I said I liked BC in this game. It was a North Carolina sandwich for North Carolina between Wake and NC State. And they didn't beat NC State either. But when they went up to BC, this was like their only like cold weather game coming up to Boston. They didn't do well. And I don't know if the weather was part of it, but this is going to be a similar situation, a cool, rainy day, and North Carolina has to come back up to Boston for an 11 a.m. start time. Are they really going to be that excited about this bowl game? I'm not so sure that they will. And this is a North Carolina team that's used to being in bowls. I don't know when the last time they won one was, but they're in bowls all the time. Whereas UConn's not even in a division anymore, and they did pretty well this season. I know obviously they faced a weaker schedule because they're not in a conference at all now, but they played pretty competitively against Syracuse, against Wake Forest. They didn't do that badly in those, competitively against Duke. I mean, those are decent teams, 2 of those in bowl games, of course. And then Maryland did kill them, so they didn't have a good start to the season. But UConn, other than that game when they stepped up and played ACC teams, they actually did okay. So that's not a bad sign. And UConn also, I don't think they've won a bowl for who knows how long. Like, I think it's been over a decade or maybe around a decade, because I did mention that they really haven't even been in bowls recently, except they got into a bowl 2 years ago, I think. And I think I made a play on UConn in that game, and they wound up losing and not covering. I had plus 10.5 on that one against Marshall, I think, and they lost by 14 or something like that. So I thought UConn, after not having been in a bowl for so long, they'd be excited to be there. And I think that might be the case here too. I mean, this UConn team, they don't get into bowls very often. They haven't won one in a while for the program. So I would slightly lean to taking the points with UConn in this one. I'm not going to do it, but I think more of the motivating factors are on the UConn side, even though UNC is 6-6. I mean, this is UNC. I mean, they get into bowls all the time, and playing in a cold, rainy Wasabi Bowl in Fenway doesn't seem like it's going to be that exciting to them. UConn has fewer transfers out. If you can see my screen here, UNC, 2 of their quarterbacks look like they're out, transfer portal and injury, although those guys are not their current starters, Harrell and Johnson. I think they started earlier in the season, but for the most part, I think both offenses are, like, for the most part, pretty intact in this game. So there's not a whole lot to see one way or the other from the transfer portal. I think both teams pretty much have their starting lineups that were the lineups towards the end of the season still intact. So moving on, the Pinstripe Bowl in New York at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx is also today. Usually those two, the Fenway and the Pinstripe Bowl, are usually both on the same day. I think they come up one after the other. The Pinstripe Bowl is at noon today. That's BC at Nebraska. This one, I actually kind of like Nebraska in this game. Nebraska's gone up a little bit from 3.5 to 3.5 with juice. 55% of tickets, 59% of the cash. Money is coming in on Nebraska. I mean, BC, I don't know exactly how excited I think they're going to be in this game. They did finish the season nicely with 2 wins, winning 3 of their last 4. So that indicates that maybe they do want to be here. They do have a quarterback situation where Castellanos was the guy who won their bowl game last year. BC won the Fenway Bowl last year against SMU. So this game may not be as big to them because they did that. So it's not like they haven't been to a bowl in a while or anything like that. BC, they're in bowls pretty often, and they did win that one last year. Now they got James, who's filled in nicely for Castellanos. He should be playing in this game. He does not have bowl experience, although, of course, Nebraska hasn't been to a bowl for so long. They don't have bowl experience either. But BC, yeah, I mean, after winning that bowl last year, I don't know if they're going to be that excited about this. But again, with James in there, they won 3 out of their last 4 games. That shows me they came to play down the stretch. So I do think BC will show up in this game as well. This is the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl, by the way. Bad Boy Mowers for a while was a sponsor of the Gasparilla Bowl in St. Pete's and Tampa, whatever. Now they're the Pinstripe Bowl sponsor. So that whatever you want to take away from that, man. Bad Boy Mowers, they're expanding, baby. But I like Nebraska just a little bit more in this one, just because they're sitting at 6-6. So again, there's that extra motivator in your head there because you don't want to be a losing team. Nebraska, they did finish the season worse though, so that gives me a little bit of hesitation, like down the stretch. But they played pretty competitively in all these games. They played Ohio State really tough, and then they didn't have a good game against UCLA, really, which I think I faded them against UCLA there. They played still pretty competitively, though, against UCLA. USC beat Wisconsin, and then they played competitively again against Iowa. And, I mean, most of those teams are bowl teams, too, so I don't know if there's a whole lot that you can take away from that. But Nebraska, I mean, they faced a pretty difficult schedule, the more difficult schedule than BC did. Of course, the odds makers are telling you Nebraska is the better team here, is their favorite. Nebraska does have more transfer portal, more of a transfer portal situation here. BC really does not have a whole lot of guys going in there. I mentioned Castellanos. He basically left the team, so it's no surprise that he's in the transfer portal, but James has been their quarterback for a few weeks now, so that's not a huge deal. Nebraska has more guys going into the transfer portal here, but they will still have, I think most of their key offensive players are still intact with Dylan Raiola, the guy who thinks that he's Patrick Mahomes. He's still in there. We'll see. But I think Nebraska, I mean, they're kind of equipped to play a game like this in like a cold, rainy afternoon game or noontime game in Yankee Stadium here in Nebraska. They play kind of ugly, like defensive football. So I don't know. This is a fairly tough read here. The total's way low. It's gone up from 45 to 46.5 though. So it looks like some money is coming in the over. 96% of the cash, only 63% of the tickets. I don't know if I would want it over in this game, man. I mean, you got two teams that kind of play a little bit more on the physical side of things. So again, it's a game that I really don't want to get involved in. As I said, I don't want to get involved in any of these bowls. What's up, Charles? Good morning to you as well. Bad Boy Mowers. Do you have a Bad Boy mower? I don't even know where they like sell their mowers, man. I don't have any. The next game up is the Isleta, New Mexico Bowl, or Ileta. I don't know what the hell Isleta is. Ileta. They're the new Mexico Bowl sponsor. It was Gildan for a while. This game is in Albuquerque, New Mexico, so it's a little bit closer, I guess, to TCU. Is TCU going to be excited to be here? I don't know. This is Louisiana Lafayette, Ragin' Cajuns against TCU. I mean, both of these teams have been in bowls over the last several years. I mean, it's not a new experience for either of these teams, really. Although, as I was kind of alluding to, by the way, Nebraska has not been to a bowl for a while. Like, I think for almost a decade, Nebraska has not been into a bowl. So I think that game means a little bit more to Nebraska for that reason as well. So I leaned to Nebraska on that one. Louisiana TCU, this game's a really hard read for me, man, because TCU, they had a bad season last year, wound up below 500, so they didn't even make a bowl. So maybe they'll be excited to be back to a bowl. But of course, I remember the season before that, they made the championship game. Oh, man, I don't know how that even happened. Making the championship game the prior year against Georgia, I believe, and Georgia absolutely annihilated them because TCU really shouldn't have been there. But TCU, I mean, it's not like they've had a long bowl layoff, and neither has Louisiana. I mean, Louisiana's been in bowls the last several years. They've won a couple. I think it's been a little while. I think they won the New Orleans Bowl like a few years ago, maybe. So I don't know. TCU may draw more of a crowd here for this game, though, because they're back to a bowl. They're fairly close to their home state here in New Mexico. So TCU may show up for this game crowd-wise. TCU's down a little bit, though. They're public, but they're a big favorite, down from 10.5 to 10. 81% of tickets, 69% of the cash on TCU. TCU was like a double-digit favorite, and now the line's moved down a little bit. So I don't know exactly what's causing that movement on the line there towards Louisiana. If you look at the opt-outs, though, let me see. Where are we looking? Louisiana has no opt-outs at all. It looks like, at least as far as this covers.com tracker is concerned. TCU has very few as well. They got some linebackers hitting the transfer portal, but nobody else. So not a big transfer portal situation. It looks like both teams are probably going to show up to play in this game. So again, in a situation like that, it's almost like you want to look to the better team, but TCU faced a really easy schedule this year, though, man. In my opinion, they really were not that battle tested this season. They had a couple of games against strong opponents. I mean, they got killed by SMU. That was probably the best team that they faced, really. They beat this Utah team that really started struggling with the Cam Rising injury. They beat Texas Tech by 1, lost to Baylor by 3. Those are bowl teams. Other than that, they really did not face a whole lot of bowl teams, man. So TCU, how good are they really? I don't know. But TCU, they did finish the season strong with 3 straight wins. So it does look like to me they do want to be here at the very least. Louisiana, I think they want to be here as well. And they get to face a Big 12 team. So they get to step up and play a Big 12 team. Louisiana had an awful performance against Marshall in the Sun Belt Championship, I believe is what that was. And I liked Louisiana. I had Louisiana in that game, and I thought that Wooldridge might be back in that game, or I don't know what the case was, but I was kind of banking on Louisiana just being the better team there because that Marshall team way overperformed this year. And Marshall, they're not even going to show up for their bowl game, which I'll mention in a little bit because that bowl game is today as well. So I don't know, man. But Louisiana, I mean, this team, yeah, I mean, one of the big questions is Wooldridge going to be back in this game because he's been injured. He's not in the transfer portal. I don't think it's not listed here, so I don't know. So that's one thing you really have to take a look at, and maybe that would be the reason why the line moved 3 or 4 points, because TCU was like a 13, 14-point favorite for a little while. So maybe that does mean Wooldridge is actually going to try to come back for this game against Louisiana. I mean, he's a really good quarterback. He's like maybe the best quarterback in the Sun Belt, but after him not having played for a while, how much of a positive is that? Because I always talk about the reverse injured player spot where if Wooldridge does come back, the team's going to have to like regain some chemistry with him. He's going to have to get used to playing again. So I don't know how that is really going to go. But I think maybe Louisiana might be a little bit angry about how they lost that Sun Belt championship game, man. A lot of times I don't like to play on teams in bowls that went into the bowl in a really ugly fashion, but I don't know if I consider this to be that ugly because they were without their starting quarterback. Actually, Louisiana's other quarterback got hurt in this game too, so they were basically playing without a quarterback. So I think whatever the situation is here, I think they got to have one of their quarterbacks must be back here and playing in this game, I would have to imagine. So I might have a slight lean to taking the points with Louisiana. I mean, this Louisiana team was pretty good. They played competitively against Tulane. They beat Wake Forest. So, I mean, they beat Texas Tech. They're a bowl, or Texas State, excuse me. They're a bowl team. They massacred Arkansas State. They're a bowl team. So, I mean, their schedule wasn't really that. I mean, for a Sun Belt team, it was not that weak a schedule. So, we know TCU is the better team from the better conference, but I mean, Louisiana might actually be able to hang within double digits in this game. And it looks like that's the way the market read goes. So again, it's a game I really don't want to put my money on, though. Of course, Bad Boy Motors is a dope name. Yeah, it is one of the better bowl sponsors for sure. Some of the bowl names are more hilarious, though. Speaking of which, this is one of the this is the game with like the two teams that were closest to making the playoffs that didn't make the playoffs that are in a bowl game, and they're playing against each other in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Iowa State and Miami. This is a new bowl as of last year, which I think Kansas State won the inaugural Pop-Tart Bowl last year against, who the hell was it against? I don't even remember. But again, I think it was, I don't even remember who it was against, but this is number 18, Iowa State, number 13, Miami. We know Miami, besides Alabama, Miami was the next team left out of the playoff. Miami, I mean, if they hadn't lost to Syracuse, they probably would have made the playoffs. So one argument would be, well, Miami's a disappointed team. They don't want to be here. But to counter that, well, they get to play a Big 12 team. They get to play Iowa State, who was the team that lost the Big 12 championship game to Arizona State. So you could argue the same thing for Iowa State, that are they going to be disappointed? Because if they won that game against Arizona State, they'd be in the playoff, and they'd be playing in the playoff upcoming in a few days. So you could argue both of these teams are a little bit disappointed, but now because they get to play each other and they're both big conference teams, they're both ranked teams, I actually think they're both going to show up in this game and play this game. And the line seems to indicate that. The transfer portal situation seems to indicate that. This game, there aren't like a whole lot of us transfer portal players here in this game. So for the most part, these teams are going to show up. Cam Ward is going to show up and play for Miami, which to me seems maybe a little bit stupid because he is entering the draft. I'm going to talk about that in a minute with the Colorado situation as well. But man, there are so many bowls today. Try to get through this quick. Because, you don't want your draft stock to plummet. You don't want to get injured playing a pretty meaningless bowl game, but we'll see. So Cam Ward is going to play Miami, Pop-Tart Bowl, by the way. I just wanted to make fun of the Pop-Tarts Bowl because it is maybe the creepiest bowl with the bowl like tradition that they have there. So we have a few weird bowl traditions. I mean, in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, I forgot to mention, the winning coach does get French fries dumped on him. And ESPN didn't even show it, by the way, when Northern Illinois won that one. ESPN didn't show the coach getting the fries dumped on him, which was, you want to at least see that, man. I mean, it's the gimmick of the bowl, but it didn't happen in like in a way where they like really like had focus on it. Like basically the players just ran out onto the field and dumped the fries on him. So whatever. It's not like the Duke's Mayo Bowl, which is coming up. I don't know when that's going to be, but the Duke's Mayo Bowl, They literally dump a vat of mayo on the winning coach. It's so ridiculous, man. I'll talk about that more when the Duke's Mayo Bowl happens. I mean, these bowls, these are newer bowl concepts, and these things are getting out of control, man. The Duke's Mayo Bowl used to be like the Meineke Car Care Bowl or whatever. They did not run the winning coach of that bowl over with Meineke tires, by the way. That was not the case. The Pop-Tarts Bowl, though, this is a completely new bowl, I'm pretty sure, as of last year. It's in Orlando in Camping World Stadium. This stadium hosts a couple of bowls every year, usually. So Miami does kind of have a home advantage here to some extent, which Miami, I mean, they have a big fan base, and if they only have to travel to Orlando, they're going to travel for this game. So Miami should have a fan base edge in this game, I would have to imagine. That still want to show up and see them play this game, which is it's almost like a semi-playoff game if these teams treat it this way, because they are both pretty decent teams that just got barely left out of the playoff. But the Pop-Tarts Bowl, what I was about to say, I'm all over the place today. What I was about to say is the post-game celebration in the Pop-Tarts Bowl is absolutely bizarre, man. They have the mascot or mascots of the Pop-Tarts Bowl are anthropomorphic Pop-Tarts, where they actually have I think they actually have a human being come out dressed as a Pop-Tart, and they have 3 of them who are all different Pop-Tart flavors. And then the winning team gets to choose which Pop-Tart they want to eat. And that particular mascot gets lowered into a toaster, toasted and presumably killed, even though they don't actually kill a person, by the way. And then a huge Pop-Tart of that flavor that's supposedly that Pop-Tart comes out, and the winning team eats the giant Pop-Tart, which I think still probably has a face on it, because it's still supposed to be that humanized Pop-Tart. It's very, very bizarre, unbelievably bizarre. I don't remember what flavor was the choice for Kansas State last year, but I will say I saw what the flavors were, and I think they're cinnamon roll, which is a pretty good flavor, by the way. Wild berry, which is a classic. And then I forget what the other one was. The other one, I was like, why is this a flavor? I think it might have been, was it cookies and cream? I forget. I mean, maybe that's not that bad a flavor, but I would go with cinnamon roll out of those 3. We'll see what the winning team wants to do here, but no brown sugar and cinnamon. I mean, come on, man. I think all the Pop-Tart connoisseurs know that brown sugar and cinnamon, that's the best Pop-Tart flavor, man. Brown sugar, cinnamon, it's a classic. It's got a lot going on. It's a great flavor of Pop-Tart. So we'll see what happens in this game. But as far as the game is actually concerned, yeah, I think both teams are going to show up. Miami's actually up from 3 to 5. So oddsmakers telling you Miami's actually the better team here. 73% of tickets, 88% of the cash coming in on the Miami side. I would agree with the Miami side just because we see the line moving in that direction. You could have laid 3, though. So I'm not jumping out of my seat to come lay 5 here. But I think Iowa State, I think the years of their defensive prowess are kind of gone, man, because people tend to think Iowa State, well, they're a pretty good defense, right? Even I've been saying that. I said that earlier this year, but their defense really was not that good this year, man. I know I've bashed Miami a lot. I don't think Miami has a good defense either, but Miami, they're all pretty much scoring. They're pretty much all offense, but Iowa State, their defense hasn't actually been that good this year, and their offense is significantly worse than Miami. So I do agree with the Miami side, and I agree with the over in this one. This is a high total, up from 55.5 to 57.5, 93% of tickets and cash. Public is going to be on the over in this one too, because it's one of the more highly publicized bowl games with these two teams being in it. But I think the public is not wrong in this case. It looks like we've seen money come in on that side. I think Iowa State, like I said, I think their defense is not even as good as people think it is. Miami certainly gives up points when they play, and they certainly score points. Cam Ward, if he wants to, flash something in this game, not his manhood, by the way, but if he wants to flash some of his talent and try to impress the drafters or impress the NFL scouts even more, and hopefully not get hurt. Maybe he'll show something in this game. Who knows? The only hesitation I would have here on the Miami side, and maybe on the over too, although I have less hesitation on the over, would be that, is Cam Ward going to pack it in early in this game to try to avoid injury? Is he not really going to play the full game? I don't really know, because he's out there saying that he will. So we'll see what happens there. You want to lose the Mayo Bowl? Yeah, it's almost like a disincentive getting a Mayo bath there. Kool-Aid, I could see Kool-Aid sponsoring a bowl. Maybe it'll happen. I like toaster strudels as well, man. Much more flaky. Pop-Tarts, the Pop-Tarts are, kind of an older concept. They're like harder. I get what you mean, man. The toaster strudel definitely has a better texture to it. It's more flaky. It's more like a Danish or a croissant. I do like that. I agree with you on that. The icing a little bit better, but I like Pop-Tarts. They have good flavor, man. And you just got to make sure that you toast it like the right amount. You can eat them untoasted too, actually. If you refrigerate some Pop-Tarts, they're actually pretty good cold as well. Cool Pop-Tarts. So the Pop-Tart, that's the thing that you can't do with the toaster strudel. The toaster strudel, you absolutely have to toast. Pop-Tart, you can eat it like any temperature. So that's the advantage of the Pop-Tart. All right, next up. Oh, no, I closed my tab here. So many bowls today. The next bowl up, these are all afternoon games. Here's the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl. I don't remember what this the sponsor of the Arizona Bowl was prior to this, but now it's Snoop Dogg. So I guess Snoop Dogg is going to be at this game. I don't know if he's the halftime performer or what the deal is here. Ridiculous. But this is Miami, Ohio, and Colorado State. I don't know what to think about this game at all, man. This is a difficult read. Colorado State is getting some public action because, well, of course, when you have the non-MAC team and they have the better record on the season, that's going to draw some public action, I would say. The public likes to fade the MAC and bowls, and they like the team with the better-looking record, which is Colorado State. But Colorado State, I don't think they're that good, man. They had an easy schedule this year, and the odds makers are telling you Miami, Ohio is actually the better team here. 63% of tickets and cash on the Colorado State side. So Colorado State does look a little bit public. I mean, this game is more close to their backyard, so they do have a little bit of a location edge playing in Tucson, Arizona. Their fans don't have to travel as far, so they do have that one advantage. But odds makers, again, are telling you Colorado State's not really that good. I've been saying that all year, man. I mean, they got absolutely blasted when they stepped up and they played Texas. They didn't really play well against Colorado either. They lost to Oregon State, who isn't very good either. And this is not an impressive schedule, man. I mean, and they lost to Fresno. Like, what's their best win? They beat San Jose State, and I think that might be the only bowl team that they actually beat, San Jose State. I mean, that's ridiculous. This is a really weak schedule. I apologize. I shouldn't apologize. It just is what it is. Colorado State really was not battle tested, man. But if you look at the opt-out situation here in this one, it's, again, we don't see a whole lot going on with this. It looks like Colorado State does have a little bit of a wide receiver situation, but Miami, Ohio also does, because Virgil and Tracy, I know Tracy is their wide receiver and their running back. Virgil and Tracy both hit the transfer portal. So Miami, Ohio is down a couple of their starting wide receivers. So Miami, Ohio is going to lack in that department a little bit, but they probably have guys who can fill in. So other than that, I mean, these teams are mostly intact. So I kind of expect both teams are going to show up in this game. Colorado State, I think they haven't been to a bowl in a while. I think the last time they won a bowl was, I don't know, it was probably a while ago. And I think it was a New Mexico bowl. I think it was this Gildan, New Mexico, 11 years ago. You can correct me if I'm wrong. You can go back and look, but I think Colorado State hasn't won a bowl for that long. So that's the one thing, that this game is somewhat of a big deal maybe. And the fan base might show up for this because Colorado State have not been to many bowls recently. They haven't won one in over a decade. So that might motivate them a little bit more. Whereas Miami, Ohio, I mean, they're usually one of the better teams in the MAC. I mean, they've been in bowls recently, I'm pretty sure. I think they were in a bowl last year, if I'm not mistaken. They did lose in the Cure Bowl, which was the avocados from Mexico Cure Bowl back then. Miami, Ohio, I mean, they've been in bowls the last couple of years. They've lost the last couple. Miami, Ohio, though, remember, last year, Gabbert, Blaine Gabbert's brother here, whatever his name is, I forget his name, Brent Gabbert, maybe, whatever, Brett Gabbert, whatever it is. He got hurt last year, so he didn't get to play in the bowl last year. And Smith, their other quarterback, I don't know if he just skipped the bowl or what, but Miami, Ohio basically didn't play with a quarterback last year. So it looks like Gabbert is probably going to play in this one. And he's their good quarterback, man. He's their experienced quarterback. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the MAC. Miami, Ohio, they're a pretty good team, actually, for a MAC team. I mean, they didn't play that easy a schedule, to be honest. I mean, they lost to Miami, or excuse me, that was last year. They lost to Northwestern, Cincinnati, Notre Dame this year. I mean, there's no shame in losing those games. They lost to Toledo and Ohio, and those are their only losses in the MAC, and those are two of the better teams in the MAC. So Miami, Ohio, definitely not a bad team. I mean, they beat Northern Illinois. That's a nice win as well. They beat Ohio during the season as well. So they did get killed in the conference championship. And I think they might be a little bit angry about that too. So I expect both teams are going to show up in this game, man. And if that's the case, then maybe it does come down to the fact that I think Miami, Ohio is actually the better of these two teams, despite the way that it looks, or Colorado State has the slightly better record, although not by much. It's only because Miami, Ohio lost to Ohio here in the MAC championship. But I think when a team is like really hot like that and they're a low conference team like this and they just get totally embarrassed in that conference championship like that, kind of like Louisiana, I actually think the team might have a tendency to show up in the bowl because they weren't like just completely collapsing at the end of the season. You know what I mean? And Miami, Ohio is the more experienced and better quarterback in this game with Gabbert. So slight lean that way in that one. Good old fashioned. What's up, man? You want to hear, everybody wants to hear about hot sauce, man. I don't know. Maybe I do have to do it. But like I said, this betting is my obsession, man. I don't know if I have a whole lot of time here. Snoop Dogg Bowl is going to be worse than an NCAA homecoming. NCAA sometimes play in the Celebration Bowl. Yeah, you should try refrigerating the Pop-Tarts, man. It's good. Yeah, Colorado State, they haven't been to a bowl since 2017. Last win was 2013. That was that New Mexico Bowl that I showed you. Yeah, true. So they are back in the that was the New Mexico Bowl, right? They're back in the New Mexico Bowl this year. Yeah. Oh no, that was the Arizona Bowl. Excuse me. Some game out in the Southwest, whatever. It's almost the same thing. Stacks, what's up, man? Yeah, you need an H-1B to get into the country and gamble. No, you do not need that. You can bet offshore, man. There are plenty of offshore sites. You can put money down on it. Bookmaker and Bovada and Five Dimes, which is not really accessible from the U.S. that easily anymore. Get a VPN, baby. You guys are big hot sauce fans. All right. Yeah, I mean, obviously I am too. It's just, man, my schedule is just so packed. Let's get through these bowls, man. This is insane. So many bowls. I'm already at a half hour here. The first bowl is up in 45 minutes. I just love to talk about all these other sports, and I'm going to try to get through it fast. East Carolina's facing NC State in the Go Bowling Military Bowl, which is Go Bowling like an actual like bowling alley company or something, like actual bowling, like the sport? I think they might be. So now we have this double entendre here. Hey, we're a bowling company. Maybe it's bowling equipment. Maybe they sell pins. We're a bowling company, so let's sponsor a bowl. And I forgot to make the pun with Bowling Green, by the way, which they should not have lost their bowl. Bowling Green, I usually do make that pun. Hey, Bowling Green is going bowling again. But this is the Go Bowling Military Bowl. Maybe Bowling Green should be in this game. They are not, though. This is a battle of North Carolina teams with East Carolina and NC State. This is in the late afternoon Eastern here. This game, I mean, NC State obviously is the better of these two teams. They're the ACC team. East Carolina, really, really weak schedule, man. I mean, NC State, I don't think the ACC is that strong, but I mean, at least NC State faced an ACC schedule. East Carolina, this was a really, really weak schedule, man. I mean, what was their best win? North Texas? I mean, okay, UTSA, I guess, was probably their best win. That's a pretty decent bowl team there, but very, very unimpressive schedule from East Carolina, man. So East Carolina, I mean, the one thing you could say is that this is an in-state rivalry game. So East Carolina may step up for that reason to face NC State. But other than that, they are certainly not the better of these two teams. NC State's up from 6 to 7. They got 57% of the cash coming in on them. So NC State actually has the market read on them with 51% of the tickets actually on the East Carolina side. That's crazy. So I'm going to agree with the market on this one and lean to the NC State side as well. This is a game where there are really very few opt-outs in this game too. So both teams are pretty much intact. I mean, I know you see Harrison, a quarterback for East Carolina, sitting in the transfer portal, but he is not their starting quarterback, I don't believe. So both of these teams are going to show up to try to win this game, man. Hauser is the quarterback for East Carolina. He's been there for pretty much the second half of the year. So these guys pretty much are going to play in this game. You can go back and look and see what the bowl history is of these two teams. I think East Carolina, obviously, they're a little bit less used to being in bowls. I mean, I don't know when the last time they were in a bowl was really. You have to go back a ways. I did this earlier this morning, and I don't have it in my mind, man. I don't really remember. But East Carolina, I mean, they might actually step up for this. They were going to be in a bowl game during one of the stupid COVID years, and it got canceled. So the last time they were in a bowl was Oh, they actually won a bowl 2 years ago, excuse me. So they did get to play a bowl after that in the Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl back, and they blew out Coastal Carolina back then. So it was a South Carolina team. By the way, I forgot to mention South Carolina, Coastal Carolina. The Myrtle Beach Bowl is actually at Coastal Carolina's home stadium. So that's kind of crazy. And they got their asses kicked in their own stadium this year. So isn't that great? But back to this military bowl here. And again, I obviously hate the military sponsors, but at least I think this company that's sponsoring this bowl is not a military contractor at the very least, unless they're, dropping bowling balls on the Middle East or something like that. I don't know. But NC State, I mean, if they show up for this game, they're the better team here, obviously. So if both teams show up, I mean, I think NC State will show up and try to win this game. They're another one of those teams that's at 6-6 too. So again, they have that little extra motivating factor where they actually want to win the game. I mean, they faced a much more difficult schedule, man. They faced Tennessee and Clemson. They didn't do well, but they at least faced them. They lost to Syracuse, Duke, Georgia Tech. All those teams are bowl teams. I mean, they beat UNC, they're a bowl team. They beat Cal, they're a bowl team. Louisiana Tech is a bowl team now too. So NC State, yeah, I mean, they faced the way more difficult schedule. I think NC State was the team that lost the Pop-Tart Bowl last year, by the way, to K-State. Yeah, that was the case. I remember. Pop-Tarts remembers. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Pepperidge Farm should be a bowl sponsor here. But yeah, lean to NC State in this one, even though East Carolina may show up as well because it's an in-state little brother. But both teams have been to bowls recently. I think it's both for both teams. I think it's been around the same since they've won a bowl. So NC State, I do think they have motivation and reason to show up there. The next bowl up is another one of the more interesting ones with a couple of teams that had a chance to make the playoffs at various points because of that weird cluster in the Big 12. This is number 17, BYU, and number 23, Colorado. I thought it was against the committee rules to put two teams from the same conference against each other in a bowl. But maybe times are changing. Maybe that's not a rule anymore. I don't love it because usually the bowls are about like playing somebody that you really never get a chance to play. But that's not the case here. As BYU and Colorado are both Big 12 teams, and they're both playing in the Valero Alamo Bowl. This has been a Valero sponsored game for a long time. This is in the Alamo Bowl Stadium. It's a domed stadium in San Antonio, Texas. BYU and Colorado here, man. I mean, these teams, even though they're both in the Big 12, I think they actually didn't play each other this year. So maybe that's what the rule is. Maybe there's a rule where you still can't play a team in a bowl that you played this season. But I don't think that's a rule either, though, because I think a couple of these teams are playing bowls against teams they played during the season. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know, whatever. So BYU, I mean, we know what happened to them. They were undefeated up until the last couple of weeks of the season. They lost their undefeated status. I've been saying BYU, I don't think is that good of a team, really, which I still stand by that. But here's the thing about BYU. They match up well against Colorado. BYU, their best unit is their pass defense, and all Colorado does is throw the ball. So it's a good matchup for BYU at the very least. Their defense may be able to keep Colorado's offense in check. That's the one thing that BYU does have going for them. BYU, after those two losses, they were able to bounce back and finish the season with a win. So I do like that at the very least. Colorado, we know, I think they were actually a little bit closer to being able to get into the playoffs when it all came down to it. And they absolutely massacred Oklahoma State, who we know is a terrible team. Both of these teams lost to Kansas down the stretch as well. So we know that Oklahoma State is a terrible team this year, but Colorado, I mean, they finished the season with a win as well. And both teams look like they're going to show up in this game. And as crazy as that sounds, very few opt-outs in this game. And Colorado, the whole thing was, well, Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, they shouldn't play in this game, right? Because they're both entering the draft. So why would they ruin their draft stock by potentially getting injured? Well, this is going to be like, I think, a first of its kind situation where both players took out draft insurance. So Shedeur Sanders and insured Sanders, him and Travis Hunter, they both are insured coming into this game, which the details haven't been released, and I don't think this has ever been done before. It's very bizarre, but maybe it's a good thing because it's an incentive. The incentives line up, so it's an incentive for the players to still play in the bowl game, and it's not going to like totally destroy them as far as the draft is concerned, because I think probably what it does is if those players do wind up getting injured here, the insurance is probably going to pay out like I don't know, probably a first or maybe even a couple of years of like what their NFL salary might be or something like that would be my guess. So I don't know exactly what the situation is there, but they're both insured in this game, which is crazy. So they will both play. Are they going to not play the full game? I don't know. It sounds like they're saying they're going to play the full game. I mean, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, is a maniac. So who knows? I mean, this is going to be his first bowl game since he was the last time he was in a bowl was when he was coaching Jackson State, and they got into one of the cricket celebration bowls or whatever the hell it was back then, and they lost that game, I'm pretty sure. So Coach Prime, I mean, he's going to want to win this game as well. But again, I lean to BYU in this game slightly because I'm not 100% sure that Sanders and Hunter are going to play the full game here. And I like BYU's defensive matchup here. In Colorado, of course, they're the hype team. The public's going to come in on them. This line has moved in a weird way. It was Colorado 2.5 for a long time. I think because we didn't know if those players are going to play. Then once it was announced that those players were going to play, it went all the way to 5. But then some money started coming in on the BYU side, taking the 5, taking the 4.5, taking the 4, taking even the 3.5, and now it's back down to 3 with juice. So I think some legitimate money came in after we knew that those Colorado players are going to play. Some money came in taking the BYU team anyway at the better number. So maybe it was just a numbers play, but maybe some professionals do actually like the matchup for BYU, as I do. I think BYU's defense is they are well suited to hold this Colorado offense in check, man. In Colorado, maybe they won't completely go all out here because they still don't really want to get injured. Obviously, those 2 star players that are going to enter the draft. Colorado's got 68% of tickets, 73% of the cash, but I don't put too much stock into the cash percentage here when the line has just been all over the place. I think that it's just that Colorado's obviously going to be overhyped as they always are. And Colorado is in the Heisman curse situation because Travis Hunter won the Heisman. So whenever the Heisman winner's team plays and the Heisman winner wins, that's like a whole thing. Like that team actually doesn't do that well in their bowl game. And sometimes they just don't completely go all out so that they don't get injured. But this is a new situation where the guys are insured, but still slightly into taking the points with BYU. But I don't love it. I mean, I'm not going to play it. I skipped the Tarts in Miami. Yeah, Andrew, what's up, man? And Charles again. Yes. So what's up, man? Yeah. The Battle of the Carolinas. That is true. It might not be a horrible bowl game, but I don't know, man. I mean, East Carolina, they're a pretty bad team. Yeah. Kansas won last year. Kansas. Yeah. Kansas did win, whatever that bowl was against UNLV. It was one of the Arizona bowls they won last year. I don't know if it was this Arizona bowl or the other one, but whatever it was. You like BYU money line, Matthew? I don't mind that either. I mean, if I was going to take the points with BYU, I would put some of the bet on the money line. Yeah, and Shitters Sanders. That's right. Colonel Sanders, actually. Yeah, maybe they should start calling him that. I don't know. And then the last game up is a weird one in the Independence Bowl, which is in Shreveport, Louisiana. Interesting location for this. This is the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. I don't know if this is a military contracting company or not, but this game, this has been a bizarre one, man. This is number 22 Army. Army's coming off a loss to Navy, and it was a pretty bad loss. I know Army and Navy, they always get up to play each other. So I said I didn't love Navy in their bowl game just because they were coming off that huge win over Army. They did still come back and beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma tried to win with a 2-point conversion at the end and blew it. So I would be pissed if I had Oklahoma -1 or whatever it was when that game kicked off. Army, they were on the losing side of that Navy game. So Army, even though that is a huge game, Army probably does not want to let their season end that way. So Army is going to show up in this game, in my opinion, even though that is a huge game against Navy. And I really don't think they're going to be that excited to play Louisiana Tech. But Army, I mean, they're obviously they're a military academy, so they really don't have too many players hitting the transfer portal, though. Udo, their running back, is actually in the transfer portal, but I don't know if there are rules against him actually transferring out. So I don't know if he's actually going to play in this game or not, but he was one of their better running backs. And of course, we know Army, they're a military academy. They run a lot. I mean, that's what they do. They can throw the ball a little bit too, but they run the ball. Their quarterback will be there for this game. They're a dual threat quarterback. I mean, for the most part, military academy teams, they show up with their full slate of players. I mean, Louisiana Tech's had a lot of guys transfer out, but their starting quarterback is still going to be there. So I don't know. I mean, Louisiana Tech, I would worry a little bit about this number of opt-outs for Louisiana Tech, though. It's including Pig Cage, by the way. Isn't that a great name? Pig Cage, the safety, transferring out, man. So I don't know what the situation is going to be, but even though Louisiana Tech has all these opt-outs, I don't know. Well, maybe they're not opt-outs because you can hit the transfer portal and still decide to play in a bowl game. And maybe these players hit the transfer portal thinking that they weren't going to be in a bowl game because remember, Marshall was supposed to play in this bowl game. Marshall was certainly bowl eligible. They won the Sun Belt. And then Marshall, their coach left, and so many of their players left, even more than Washington State's did, who played last night. So many players left that they had to pull out of this bowl game. They pulled out, man. Their pullout game is strong. So Louisiana Tech, they're a 5-7 team, and they got invited into this bowl game, and it's in their home state in Shreveport, Louisiana. So I actually think Louisiana Tech should be excited to be in this bowl because they didn't think they were going to be in a bowl, man. And they're one of those teams, these teams that are 5-7 and they get into a bowl. Sometimes you can like petition to get into a bowl if there aren't enough bowl teams to fill all the slots. You can get in that way. Those teams tend to do pretty well against the spread in bowl games, man, because they get overlooked and they're excited because they never expected they were going to be in a bowl, and now they are. And Louisiana Tech, I mean, they might have some of their home crowd show up here because this is in their home state. So Louisiana Tech has all that going for them. So I actually might lean to Louisiana Tech a little bit, but problem is they certainly faced a weak schedule. I know Army didn't face a strong schedule either, but Louisiana Tech's from an even weaker conference than Army is. In Louisiana Tech, you have to worry about, do they know how to defend the triple option? I mean, that is a question as well. It's not something they see that often, I don't think. So that might be in question as well. So I'm not going to come in and try to play this game. The line in this game has been weird as well. Army, as you can see, when they were going to play Marshall, it had gone up from 12.5 to 16.5. The public was coming in on Army. Some of the cash was coming in on Army as well, maybe because Marshall was losing all their players. And the total was low, and it's low again in this one. Even lower, down from 48 to now 43.5, down from 44 to 43.5 once Louisiana Tech took Marshall's place, because Louisiana Tech is not a very good offense, and I don't think they can run the ball really either. I think they mostly throw it. I could be wrong about that. So some really contrasting styles here in this game, but this line has been weird, man. I mean, Army was 16.5. The line was up to 17.5, and then some money came in and took Louisiana Tech, and now it's down to 14.5. And I don't know if that's because Udo is actually not playing for Army, or that running back that I mentioned, or what the deal is there. I mean, Army, they have enough guys that I think their rushing attack, triple option is still going to be fine anyway, but Army's got 77% of tickets. The public's going to come in on Army because they like what they saw in Army this year. Way better record out of these two teams. It's 77% of the cash on La Tech. I don't really disagree with La Tech, man. That would be the slight lean that I would have, would be to taking the points, especially with a total that's this low. I mean, it's going to make it more difficult for this game to get up, or for a favorite to cover like a huge number like this, even though Louisiana Tech might really struggle to score in this game because Army's defense is actually not that bad. So an under might actually make sense in this game too, especially if Army is going to just be, I know that Army does actually run fast paced though on offense, but if Army's got the lead and they're running the ball and they're just trying to run out the clock at some point, that might wind up slowing the game down a little bit. And maybe the score will wind up going under as well. But I think taking the points of Louisiana Tech might make sense because I do think they are pretty excited to be in this game in Louisiana when they thought their season was done. And now they're playing in the postseason technically. So that's the way that I look at that. That's the entire college football slate. Oh, I already read that one. Matthew, hello again, Matthew. All right, let's go to men's college basketball. Man, I got to get through this stuff. It's a Saturday, men's college basketball, and we have a few games here today. Not a whole bunch of games, but I'm going to play two of them. One of the games I'm on is Memphis -1.5 against Ole Miss. This is one of the better games on tap today, man. This is in Memphis. Looking at this game, this is really all about the schedule strength, man. I mean, Ole Miss, I know they're 11-1. Memphis is 9-3, excuse me. So the public is probably going to come in and play Ole Miss in this game. But I like Memphis here, as I said. Memphis, they're up from 1 to 2 now. I think you can still get 1.5 out there. It's basically just pick the winner. I mean, the public's going to come in. They like Ole Miss. They like the SEC team. They like the team that plays offense. I mean, Ole Miss has kind of been turning their defense around there too with who who's their coach there again? I forget. I think they have James James Beard, the chef. No, they have what's the guy's name? He was at Texas for a while. I think it is Beard, something Beard. I forget. I think he is there, so he is kind of improving their defense a little bit. But man, I mean, that was my knock on Ole Miss last year, is their offense is good, but their defense is not. And Ole Miss, they haven't played anybody really yet this year. I mean, BYU is okay. Colorado State's down this year. Louisville kind of down this year as well. Their one big win that they had, but they did still take care of business there. But Louisville had an awful shooting game. I lost on Louisville in that game, but Ole Miss, I mean, they lost to Purdue. That was their big step-up game. And now this Memphis team is pretty good, man. Even though the odds makers are telling you Ole Miss is a slightly better team, I agree with that. Ken Baum, I think, has Memphis winning this game by 1 or 2 points as well. So all of that is kind of in line. Memphis, both of these teams are good, man. Memphis is only slightly worse than Ole Miss on both sides of the ball. And one of the other reasons I like Memphis here is that Memphis, not only have they faced a more difficult schedule, but Ole Miss, we're talking about teams that are coming out of the holiday break now, man. You know what I always say about extended time off. If you went into that break on a hot streak, you tend to not come out of that hot streak and play that well, man. And this is only going to be Ole Miss's, I think this is their first true road game, too, because I think this Louisville game, this was this was at Louisville, excuse me. So it is their second. That was in the ACC SEC challenge, but it was at Louisville. But even so, this is going to be their second true road game of the season. So they're not really used to playing on the road here. And like I said, when you go into the break on a win streak like this, even though they're beating bad teams on a hot streak, you don't want to have to go into a break, man, because that break is going to disrupt your momentum. So I think this doesn't look that good for Ole Miss. And they do start conference play against Georgia on January 4th. So I think this sets up as a momentum-killing spot for Ole Miss here. Memphis, they face a more difficult schedule, even though I'm not saying they're the better team, but they beat UConn. They beat San Francisco. San Francisco's good. Missouri's not that bad. They beat UNLV. I mean, they face so much more of a difficult schedule. It's not even close. They beat Michigan State. They lost to Auburn. I mean, come on, man. Arkansas State's not even that bad. They lost to Mississippi State in the last game. They beat Clemson. They beat Virginia, who's down a little bit this year, but there's no comparison between these two schedules. I think Ken Baum has Ole Miss having like one of the weakest 20 schedules in all of college basketball, and Memphis has like one of the top 5 most difficult schedules so far. So you know which of these teams is more battle tested. And Memphis, they went into their holiday break on an ugly loss at home against Mississippi State. So I think they're going to be in bounce back mode. I think that means they get to use that time off to try to fix whatever went wrong in that game. And if you look at what went wrong in that game, well, Memphis didn't shoot well. That was pretty much the tail of the game, 35.8 from the field. I don't think that's going to happen again, even though, yes, they got outboarded as well, but 29.6 from 3, not very good either. But Ole Miss, I mean, they still struggle defensively at times. All that being said, give me Memphis in that game. And then what else we got? Let me look at, I'm going to look at the ESPN schedule here because it's more chronological. There aren't that many big games today, like I said. And the other game is the other game I'm playing is also up this afternoon. George Mason minus 16.5. I'm going to lay the points with George Mason. I know this is not the same, or you can get 16 now. I guess it's up from 15 to 16. This is a fade of Mount St. Mary's for the most part, man. I mean, George Mason, they're the better team. I mean, it's not really a secret. Everybody knows they're the better team, but looking at these records, man, people might think Mount St. Mary's is actually like competitive with George Mason, but I don't really think so. Ken Baum has this line closer to like 14 or 15, but with a couple points in that range, I don't think it matters that much. You just need George Mason to win the game. The one maybe issue with this is that George Mason does play a slow pace. Mount St. Mary's plays a fast pace, but that doesn't mean that George Mason should be able to take control of the pace in this game and throw Mount St. Mary's out of their element. But you don't really necessarily want to lay huge points with a team that plays slow pace. But in this case, I'm going to, because I think George Mason is the way better team here. As the odds makers are telling you, they're the team from the way better conference. But even though the records are both 8-4, that means George Mason probably has played a more difficult schedule. And I think they have, although it's not by that much. Maybe they really even haven't. But George Mason is still the better team. They're 7-1 at home. I mean, the odds makers are telling you they're the significantly better team. They've been way better at home, but one of the main reasons of fading Mount St. Mary's is they went into the break beating Miami. I mean, I know Miami's down this year, but this is a ridiculous win on Miami's home floor. They won the game in overtime as a 16.5-point underdog, and that's how they went into a break. Of course, if they were turning around and playing right away, I'd probably want to fade Mount St. Mary's even more because they'd be just coming off of that win. But even so, that's how they went into their holiday break, getting to, go back to campus or whatever. Maybe like they might have come back to campus for a little while and like been, like just feeling really high on themselves. And of course, then they went to the holiday break. Now they're going back out on the road over to George Mason, which I think is in Virginia, I believe. So it's not that much of a travel for them, but still, it's like they have to go back out on the road. And when they went into that break feeling really high about themselves off of that's like win of the year type of stuff, man. When they played other big conference teams this year, they did not do well. They got housed by Maryland. They didn't do well against Georgetown. It's not great, really. This is just a weird kind of outlier win here against Miami. And Miami is definitely down this year, too. George Mason is actually favored by the same amount of points as Miami was in that game. So that also kind of tells you something. That's just wild. George Mason, they went into the break beating Penn and absolutely annihilating them, coming off of a game against Duke. So that kind of shows me something, too, even though, yeah, they got pretty much killed by Duke, but still, they bounced back and they had a nice blowout win going into their break. So I think that Duke game may have been the game that kind of would have halted their winning momentum or whatever. So they didn't go into the break on a huge win streak. So I think they're going to come out of the break and be ready for this game. They do have a game against Davidson up next in 3 days, which is the start of conference play. But still, I think they're going to show up and play in this game. And they are the way better team. Mount St. Mary's is in a letdown spot. So give me George Mason. Lay the points in this one. That's what I'm going to do there. Those are my two college basketball plays. Now, NHL. What do we have in the NHL here? Oh, boy. So we got... I will say this is a weird line movement here on Vancouver, dropping all the way from minus 160 to minus 124. 75% of tickets, 74% of the cash on Vancouver. So Vancouver's public, and the line is really reverse moving against Vancouver here. So kind of an interesting situation as far as that's concerned. So it looks like the market read is heavily on the Seattle side here. I don't really necessarily see it, though. I mean, both of these teams are coming out of the holiday break. They haven't played yet. Vancouver went in on one win against San Jose, so I don't really think that means they went in on a really high note. So it's not really a situation where I really want to fade Vancouver. Seattle did go into the break on a bad loss streak, though, so that might help Seattle kind of regather themselves. They might use that holiday break to fix some things. So coming out of that holiday break, getting to face a good team like Vancouver probably means you are going to get a focused effort out of Seattle. I'm just not so sure you're going to get an unfocused effort out of Vancouver. Edmonton and LA Kings is one of the best games on tap, maybe the best. Edmonton up from minus 120 to minus 129, but the Kings look like they have not only the public action, but maybe some of the money, 88% of tickets, 99% of the cash. I don't know if that percentage is really accurate, though, because we do see Edmonton has moved up a little bit on the number, but I actually like the Kings in this game. I'm not going to come in and play it, but you're getting them as a home underdog price, which isn't that bad. To me, it seems like the public is probably going to start coming in on the Edmonton side, to be honest. I mean, Edmonton has started playing really well, but they went into the break hot, man. So this is a holiday break situation here where I think it's going to halt their momentum a little bit, man. The only issue is that they're coming out of the break and they're playing a good team in LA. So I don't really think they're going to be unfocused for this game. It's just that going into the break when you're on a hot streak like that can kind of kill your momentum a little bit. And yeah, I'm surprised the public wouldn't be on Edmonton here because they actually have the better record at this point too. Slightly, it looks a little bit better. LA Kings, they went into the break on 2 straight losses, but they are returning over a road trip. But again, it's not really that much of a road trip return when they return home and then they had all the holiday break festivities or whatever. So I think that break might actually still kind of halt their like losing momentum there. So I don't think it's really a typical return home spot here when they had the holidays and they kind of just get to forget about everything. And now they have to get ready and they get to play again. And maybe they'll use that extra time off to actually prepare something for this game. So slightly into the Kings, but I'm not going to play it. I mean, I really don't, I still don't want to play them in a return home spot. Columbus just beat my Bruins again yesterday. And now they flip venues and come to Boston. Columbus now 2-0 against Boston and both pretty embarrassing losses for the Bruins. The Bruins have to come back and show up in this game, man. That would be my opinion. I would expect the Bruins are going to have to come show up. I mean, maybe it's a matchup problem, but I mean, Columbus, their goaltending situation really isn't that good. I think the Bruins have got to show up here, but they're down from minus 214 to minus 206. They are a huge favorite. So the odds makers are telling you they're the way better team, but they're public with 67% of tickets, 54% of the cash on Columbus. I don't think I really agree with that. I mean, to me, it looks like a quick revenge bounce back spot where Boston is finally not going to take them lightly. And it's the most expensive ticket today, man. This is what you get for ticket prices in Boston, man. I mean, look at how low all these other ticket prices are. Boston against an awful Columbus team, yeah, you got to pay $128. Give me a break. Washington, Toronto's the other big game on tap here. This is a pretty good one as well. I think Toronto's down from minus 125 to minus 109. Money coming in on Washington, and I agree with that. 67% of tickets, 98% of the cash on Washington. So the money is coming in on Washington. The reason I agree with this is Toronto played yesterday, so they're in a back-to-back, man. They had a blowout win over Detroit. Although it's not really that impressive a win because Detroit hasn't been playing that well. But the reason the line has moved is because of the rest spot here. I mean, Toronto, again, they played yesterday at Detroit, and now they're having to come back home. Not a huge travel situation. They're just going back from Detroit to Toronto. They don't have anything big up next, so maybe they will still be focused on Washington, but they played yesterday, which means you're probably going to get either a tired Wall in net or you're going to get like a different goaltender in net. So possibly they're going to play a different goaltender in net here. So that's a little bit of a downgrade for Toronto there, which might also be why the line moved that way. Washington went into the break on a pretty ugly note, losing to Boston. My Bruins, nice win for the Bruins, 4-1. And Washington has not played yet out of the break. And I think because they went to the break on a loss, I think that means they are going to be focused coming out of the break. So the lean would be to Washington. I agree with the money in that one. And then Carolina, New Jersey is another revenge spot. Quick revenge where New Jersey just beat Carolina, I believe, in New Jersey. Now they flip venues and go to Carolina. Is Carolina going to get revenge? I don't know. They're down from minus 135 to minus 131. Both of these teams have been playing well. This New Jersey team has really surprised people this year, I think. So we'll see what happens in this game. I mean, Carolina still looking for revenge there. So it is at least a quick revenge spot for Carolina. The game I'm actually going to play in hockey is, I know I'm going back to the well, and it's hurt me at least once, I think, trying to play the New York Rangers. I still don't think they're as bad as what they seem right now. And I think you're getting to the point where you're getting value on this New York Rangers team. Give me the Rangers at an underdog price, plus 140. They're at Tampa Bay. Tampa's public. They're up from minus 160 to minus 165. 75% of the tickets and cash on them. I'm just going to take a shot on the money line. You have to pay a little bit less when you're playing a money line underdog to try to win the same amount that you'd be trying to play to win anyway. So I like this. Tampa Bay, they went into the break beating Florida in revenge because they just lost to Florida. So they played Florida twice. That's a huge win. So they went into the break on a very high note. So I think Tampa could be in a bit of a letdown spot here. I think the break may not be that helpful to them, whereas the Rangers, they went into the break on a really bad note, losing 5-0, even though it was to a good New Jersey team. They lost to Carolina the game before that, but still, when you're struggling like the Rangers are, I think that break is going to help you like try to fix some things, man, because they got outscored 8-1 in those two games. Quick was in net for that New Jersey game, so Shesterkin should be back in net for them this time. He should be well rested, so you're going to get their better goalie. He's going to be rested. So again, yeah, I mean, the way these teams went into the break, completely different, and I like the Rangers to use that break to bounce back, whereas Tampa, you went into the break on such a high note. What do you fix? I don't know. So give me the Rangers in that game. And then Winnipeg, I will say, I mean, Winnipeg, they went into the break beating Minnesota and Toronto. So I think they're not in the greatest spot here. So I would lean to the Ottawa side here. Ottawa went into the break, but they did lose their huge win streak right before going into the break with a tough game against Edmonton. So I don't really want to play Ottawa either here, but that would be a slight lean would be to Ottawa. Winnipeg up from minus 150 to minus 152. 60% of the tickets, 56% of the cash on them. So I won't run down every game, but let's go to the NBA, and then I'll actually be able to get the hell out of here. I have two NBA plays. I don't even know if I would really want to talk about the rest of these games. I mean, they're not really that interesting. I mean, Suns-Warriors, I guess, is a good game with the Warriors sitting at 6. 78% of tickets on the Warriors, 50% of the cash over on the Suns. I mean, the Warriors lost last night, though. It was an ugly loss to the Clippers, but the Clippers aren't really that bad. Both teams are actually in back-to-backs. And Phoenix lost yesterday too. So both teams are in a back-to-back and kind of in a bounce-back spot here. So I don't know what to think about that game. And then we do have, let me see, 76ers, I think, are in a letdown spot. They're having to go out to Utah off of beating Boston on Christmas. So they're down from 7 to 6.5. If the 76ers had a bigger game up next, I would look to fade the Sixers, but I won't be able to do it here. But it is a letdown spot for them. So I would only look to take the points with Utah. But Utah is so ugly, man. And 76ers at least have had a couple of days off. They don't have a big game up next with Portland up next. Utah, I mean, they just lost to Portland, and they're returning home from a road trip technically, although Utah, I mean, of course, that road trip was broken up by the holidays here. So I think they had the holidays after they played Cleveland, and then they went back out on the road to face Portland. Now they're coming back home again, and they do have Denver up next in a couple of days. So it's not a situation where I really want to play on the Jazz either, but I do think it is a big letdown spot for the Sixers. My actual plays, first one up is Portland plus 4.5. Oh boy, this one looks way too easy to lay the points with Dallas here, man. They're down from 4.5 to 4 with juice. 62% of tickets on the Mavs. You know they're going to be public, but it looks like the money is coming in on the Trailblazers. And obviously, I'm saying I agree with this. I think this is a bad spot for Dallas, man. I mean, the public is going to look at this and think, I'm basically laying Dallas just to win by a couple buckets. That looks real easy, right? So, I mean, you got to look at the injury situation with Dallas. I mean, they had a huge win against Phoenix, which was yesterday, I think, right? And there was a fight in this game. There was a lot going on in this game, and it was a crazy game. I think Luka didn't play in this game. I think Luka is still out, so we got to look at what the injury situation is here. But the Mavs went into Phoenix. You can see right here, blows were being thrown in this game, and a lot of ejections in this game. That was a huge physical fight, man. It was a big win for Dallas. It was revenge for losing to Phoenix earlier this year, too. And now Dallas is playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities, because they played on Christmas and lost to Minnesota. It's actually a fourth game in 6 days. And they do have Sacramento up next, which is a bigger game than Portland at the very least. Sacramento at least was a playoff team last year, and Portland's one of the lower teams in the NBA. So this is a bad spot, man. I think part of the reason why the line is so low is that Luka is not coming back. Oh, yeah, he's out for a while, man. So Luka is not going to be back for a while. So this Mavs team is without Luka. So that is why the line is as short as it is. But still, it still looks way too easy to lay the points with the Mavs, especially coming off that big win. But this is a back-to-back. Portland has 1 day off. Portland didn't play on Christmas, so Portland is way more rested here. Since the 23rd, they've only played that one game against Utah. So I think Portland is going to show up for this game. And that was a decent win in that it broke their loss streak. So that win over Utah breaks up their loss streak. So I like that too. So I think they're in the much better spot here, the better rest situation. They're not traveling. They might catch Dallas taking them for granted in a bad spot. So give me the Portland Trailblazers plus 4.5 in that one. Zach, what's up, my man? No, I did not talk about. I only talked about the games that I'm actually playing. If you want me to go back, yeah, Chris Beard is Ole Miss. If you want me to go back and talk about a couple of college basketball games, Zach, yeah, you caught this one right at the end though. Jesus saves and Gretzky scores. That is true. Yeah, we will get Canadian Prime Minister Wayne Gretzky. It could happen, man. Oh yeah, is Jim Larinaga? Jim Larinaga was the coach at George Mason. That's right, because Jim Larinaga, he's so old. He's still at Miami, right? He's still the coach at Miami. Yeah, so George Mason, yeah, you're right. So it's like win one for our old coach, because Larinaga was the coach when George Mason made that ridiculous Final Four run. Now he's the coach of Miami. I didn't even think about that. That's an interesting angle there. Probably doesn't matter that much, but North Carolina, if you're talking about basketball, I don't think they're that bad, man. Oh, shit, he just resigned. Oh, fuck. Miami's really in turmoil, man. Larinaga, he was getting too old anyway, though, even though they were still playing pretty well. Like, he was getting a lot out of a Miami team that wasn't really that good. I don't think North Carolina is that bad this year, though. Let me get to this last NBA plan. Maybe I'll mention a couple of the big college basketball games because I forgot and I skipped them. Sacramento +2. I'm trying to get out of here, man, before these other games start. I got to get my bowl picks finalized as well. Kings, Lakers. I'm going to play the Kings here. It looks like it is up from 3-3 with juice, so maybe you can take a +3 on this. So I might be able to grab 3 instead of 2 on the Kings. I like the Kings here. 67% of tickets, 55% of the cash on the Lakers. So the Lakers, of course, they're public. They're LeBron. You know, they are LeBron. The Lakers have the better record and they're at home. So it's like, what is this line telling you? It's telling you that these teams are almost even, that the Lakers are only the slightly better team here. And I think that's probably accurate. I mean, the Lakers, I think they're still overperforming, but they just played on Christmas and they beat Golden State. That's a huge win. I know they have a little time off here and a little bit time off after this, but next up they got Cleveland. So this looks like a sandwich spot to me. And how much attention are they going to pay to Sacramento when they just went into Sacramento twice and beat them both times as an underdog? I mean, I don't think the Lakers are really going to take Sacramento that seriously here. It's quick double revenge for Sacramento, and Sacramento just lost for me. I thought they were in a good spot, or Detroit was in a bad spot. Sacramento had a double-digit lead for most of the second half of that game, and they not only blew the cover for me as a -6 favorite, they blew the entire game and lost the game. So I think this is a good spot for Sacramento to just get the hell out of there. Maybe they started looking ahead before that game was over. I don't know what they did there, but they blew that game as a big favorite. The Sacramento team, they were a favorite in these 2 games against LA too, and against Indiana. And they've lost 4 games in a row as a favorite. And they're playing this LA team that just beat them as a road underdog in their house twice. I think you're going to get a full effort from Sacramento in this game, man. I think they're going to be pissed. They're in the way better spot in this game. Give me the points with the Sacramento Kings. And those are all the plays today. And if you want me to talk about college basketball real quick here, although I pulled it down, but you're right. I forgot to talk about, there are a couple of big games today in college basketball. Let me try to hit these real quick here. Now, I wanted the schedule, not yesterday's scores. Oh, it's still yesterday. All right, we do have a couple of games between ranked teams here. I mean, well, Utah State and San Diego State, that's a big game at the very least. San Diego State is ranked now. I kind of like the Utah State side just because you're fading the ranking sentiment there, where these teams are actually really close to even. San Diego State only slightly better. The odds makers are telling you at 4. So I kind of like Utah State in that one, but you do have to look at how these teams went into the break, which San Diego State went into the break on a pretty nice note, winning a bunch of games in a row. Utah State had lost prior to their last game, although a nice win going into the break over St. Mary's. So both teams did go into the break on a high note, but San Diego State might have their momentum disrupted a little bit from that. So that's one of the big games today. UCLA and Gonzaga is probably the other biggest game that's on the tap today. Number 22 against number 14. I think the rankings are probably about accurate almost here, but actually, well, UCLA is actually undervalued, I think, a little bit maybe, but Gonzaga, I mean, the odds makers are telling you Gonzaga is still the better team, up from 3 to 4 with juice. The odds makers are still telling you, I think both of these teams are actually undervalued. I think Gonzaga is still like a top several team in the country. UCLA is probably better than the 22nd ranking as well, but this is a game in Inglewood, California, so it's neutral site, but it is way closer to UCLA, but the line's moving up on Gonzaga, and I can't really disagree with that. Both teams are probably going to show up in that game, and I think Gonzaga is the better of those two teams still, as the odds makers are telling you, and that's going to do it. That's the only really big game up. All right, that's going to finally do it. I'm out of here. Tower Gang Total. All my plays today are the LA Chargers -5.5. You can go check out my NFL video to see the analysis on that. College basketball, Memphis -1.5. George Mason -16.5. Hockey, Rangers +140. NBA, Portland +4.5. Sacramento +2. Let's get it done. We got 6 plays today. Thank you all of you for hanging out, man. I got to go get this Wasabi Fenway Bowl pick settled in my Bowl Mania entries. Let's go, man. Now let's have a good one today. I'm Tower Gang Toad. Peace out. Patreon.com/Tower Gang. You get live pre-show, post-show. I'm going to post to the Patreon feed today, probably last night's episode, which we had an episode last night. It was a pretty fun episode. Let's do it, man. You get live pre-show, post-show, bonus content if you sign up for the Patreon. Tower Gang, baby. That's going to do it for me. All right. Peace out. You have a good one too, Matthew. Thanks to all you guys for hanging out. Charles, have a good weekend as well. And I will be seeing Big J Okerson tonight too at the Wilbur in Boston. So it should be fun. I've seen him a couple of times, but it should be awesome. Peace out, guys.